My Gavan and Melanine, and well met indeed. I'm Arach here, Galajerthan, head of the modding team behind Divide and Conquer, and welcome to another developer diary to show off all of the new changes that have come about since the last developer diary, whenever that was. Now, there are no campaign map changes to talk of yet, so this is entirely a battle map campaign, a battle map video, and it is almost entirely centered around the Ardenheim. We will also see a few custom settlements in this video, and unfortunately I was hoping that Osgiliath wouldn't be chosen. This is just a custom battle map, obviously, and Osgiliath is selected if you choose Men of the East and the Citadel option. In fact, I think Osgiliath is chosen if you choose the Citadel option for almost anyone. It's very, very annoying. But anyway, here we are. Osgiliath hasn't been updated. It just happens to be the backdrop of our video for the first part, and then we shall look at Zag Cala, Rivendell, and Knost. But we shall start with the changes to the units. So the Ardenheim roster has now undertaken its complete revamp and is now set and ready for war. And so I bring to you today now the set and complete Ardenheim roster. Or certainly those that have actually been changed, because not all of them have. So as I mentioned in the last video, this is now the new look for the bodyguard units, the Naru and Aru Household Guard. And there they all are, nodding very slowly and looking absolutely resplendent in their gold and black armor. And their look has now been given over to the Naru and Aru Royal Guard, who look almost identical to them, as you can see. In fact, they are identical to them. But of course, this is the standard unit that you can recruit, and that unit over there is the one that is your bodyguard. But also, the look has been given to the Knights, who ride behind on the horses. The Knights have also now been given the horse that is in the files designated as the Nazgul horse, which does mean that certain units that are good against Nazgul will actually be good against this unit, which is a nice little addition. But generally, it's just a better horse. So they are quite a good cavalry unit now, and they need to be, really, because they're the only cavalry unit the Ardenheim actually can recruit from their own steam. Every other cavalry unit you must get from your slaver system. Also, getting new looks then are the Ardenheim Armsmen, standing here on the right. They've got a bit more of a, obviously sort of a heavy-looking design. And they look an awful lot like something you might find in The Witcher, I think. But that's them from behind, and then again in front. They've got these interesting little shields, and the hot topic at the moment, they are wearing full plate, but they look pretty cool and pretty medieval. The Arpharazon's Faithful have been given the old Naru and Aru design, so you'll note that that design has not left the mod with the sort of fish scale breastplate that they wear and their heavy armor throughout, but they now have that older design. So the red and black lives on in them. And the red and black is very much still a theme of the faction, as you will see as we go through all of these units. But next up are the Azrazair Savages, who have been renamed to Azrazair Warriors and have been given a completely new design, because no matter how bloodthirsty you are, it just does not make sense to go to war with no armor on whatsoever. And that is now represented in these fellows just here. So they've now been given sort of a leather surcoat, the word I'd probably go for, and that's about it, really. They've just had their bodies covered up, and they've lost their claws as well, as you might see. They used to have claws. I'm not entirely certain then that there's an upgraded version. One of these is supposedly upgraded and one isn't, but I don't think then that they actually have an upgraded version. They just look as they look throughout. So this is them for the rest of the game. But as I say, they've been renamed to Warriors because the other Azrazair Warrior unit has left the game, and it was replaced with a crossbow unit, as we'll see in a moment, but also getting a new design and stepping very much away from the Mongolian theme which the Ardenheim had before are the Abrazanim. So here's the Narduzagar, the large two-handed swordman. They've got a bit of a Roman vibe with the skirt that they're wearing there, or just sort of a Greek kind of vibe. But otherwise, again, it's just fitting with the Ardenheim armsmen wearing heavy plate on the top. And then when they upgrade, they swap out their lower skirt for a chainmail one. And chainmail also becomes a bit more prolific throughout the unit. You'll also note that they mask up and they all cover their faces. Well, some of them do, I think. Some possibly don't. No, they all do, yeah. So they all then cover their faces, ready for war. And so those are the Narduzagar. Stepping one over to the side, here are the Nardubawib. And again, they're just bowmen, but they look the same. You'll note they've got the little flourish, the horsehair helmet design. But then again, the masks on the end. And lastly, the Nardu Tarik. They lost their large wooden shield, but they've retained a large metal shield. And again, they now have a really Roman-esque vibe, particularly with the shield. But there they are, and again, the sort of mask covering the faces there. Stepping through further, we then come to the crossbowmen, as I mentioned, the Azrazair. They have the same design as the warriors, the savages, as they used to be. So those and the warriors now share the same design, which gives a nice little bit of uniformity. And both of them look different to the standard Azrazair units, who are the old Corsair units, and they are unchanged. I've not bothered to pop them in. But this is what the crossbowmen now look like. And someone else that has taken a change in their design, the request of almost everyone who saw them last time, are the Baruthiel's Rangers. If we drop down on them and bring those into view. So no longer do Baruthiel's Rangers look like this, which is what they did look like. They've now been given their own design entirely. And again, almost all of the designs that you see here today come from Theodrin's Blood of Numenor mod, and some are adapted and edited, but most are just taken wholesale and implanted into Divide and Conquer. So there are the Baruthiel's Rangers. They, of course, were updated to crossbows, and that part of them has not changed back. They mount their swords on their back, which is pretty cool, and they now stand ready as crossbow rangers, if you will, but they have obviously got a little bit of armor there as well. Next up, we'll jump to this unit at the back, the Azrazair Marines. They also have been given a bit of a new design that's similar, very similar to the Rosadan units. But they stand unique. No one looks like the Marines, so that you... but they share familiar traits with other Azrazair units. And I think they just look very, very cool. There's a mix now of the sort of fish tail or fish fin helmets on some, and then others have got headgear more suited to living in the desert, which of course is where they actually do live. So regardless of the fact that they're Numenorian descendants, or they many of them claim to be, of course they still adapt to where they live. And speaking of the Rosadan, they've been given an upgrade. So we saw their change in the last episode, and they've got the same sort of surcoats that the Azrazair have, but they've got a bit more padding on the arms and generally just look a little heavier, although they do wear sandals. But their upgraded version now just swaps it out for chainmail. So chainmail underneath, and they return to the old surcoat, tabard, covering, whatever, on their chests that they had before, which this gentleman is donning very proudly here with the flag, with the banner. That symbol is now used throughout the Rosadan when they are upgraded. And I also threw in the Rosadan halberdiers just to show you with one without a shield. So you can see the chainmail on the arms, and that's really the only difference between the unupgraded and upgraded. The chainmail and that chest piece is amended and altered. But otherwise they still have the red sort of sashes. They get a bit of a fancier skirt, I suppose, but they're still donning the sandals. And that is the change to the Ardenheim. So if we just whisk through the rebuilt streets of Osgiliath and burst out into the great beyond, where you'll find Dale. It's an absolutely minor change from what I can tell in the listing, but Bardian Marksmen, which is what this unit you're looking at the moment is, have been given a cape. And I felt that was worthy of showing you. So there we are, Bardian Marksmen standing strong with their cape. But the real reason there's a nation attacking is because there has to be, but also because siege has been amended quite substantially. Well, not that substantially, but it has been amended as follows. So previously, a ballista did 20 damage against a building, which is why it took almost one ballista crew their entire ammunition to bring down a gate. But it has been decided that ballistae should be a little stronger against towers than they were before. So ballista now do... they used to do 10 damage. They now do 20 damage. So one team of ballista crew should be able to take down a gate with half their ammunition left, give or take. And they should now be able to take down a tower with all... But it might use all of their ammunition. So you can sort of snipe towers with ballista and then use the catapults on the walls. But catapults, in an attempt to make trebuchets really stand out, catapults have been slightly weakened. So previously, a catapult did 110 damage against buildings, and a trebuchet did 120. So with only a 10-point damage difference between them, there is literally no point to getting a trebuchet, because it is simply costs more, takes longer to train, and was so much slower, and did the same amount of damage as a catapult, so you had no advantage whatsoever. Now, however, the catapult has been dropped to do 50 damage, and the trebuchet does 100 damage. So now a trebuchet is twice as good, and will shred through enemy buildings very, very quickly, making the trebuchet now the finest siege weapon in the game, as it should be, and not just a slightly, really slightly better version of a catapult. The dwarves have been given better versions of their two, though. So a dwarven catapult does 60 damage against structures instead of 50. And a dwarven ballista does 25 instead of 20. So the dwarves still have a little bit of an edge over the enemies. But as I say, it does now make trebuchets substantially superior to catapults when you actually are playing the game. And we'll just watch as these catapults fire off in very slow motion. Oh, away they go. Away they go. Soaring through the air at 0.2 times speed. And here we go. The next bolt fires. It's not a bolt, is it? It's a rock. So it's pinging over there and watch them impact. Oh, you're not going for the gate, are you? They are going for the gate as the rocks fly in. But it looks like they're going to miss. He's going to hit the side. Oh, the floor. One to the gate, though, and 12% damage. We won't bother waiting for the others. So those are the changes for the units that you might see on the battle map. But now we shall jump over to those three towns that I mentioned. Knost, Zag Cala, and Rivendell, that have all been amended again since I last showed them. Or indeed, I'm not sure I have showed them. So we shall jump over and see those. Welcome to the great goblin stronghold of Zag Cala, nestled at the height of the Cala Gorge in the heart of the Misty Mountains. And here we are in the Great Chamber. And the key things to show you as I very poorly maneuver the camera around is that the entrances have been blocked up. Every single one. The settlement is now no longer actually assailable. It's the change that we have made. No, of course, I'm joking, and that should have been obvious. But the two side entrances have been blocked off. There is now a single entrance to Zag Cala, and it comes with a gate. The best change of all. But the towers. Do not forget the towers. Now, granted, they're only small little wooden towers, so they're not going to do an absolute ton of damage. This is the weakest type of tower, but it just adds a little bit more when you're actually assaulting the settlement. You can't now just walk down the middle. Now, the key reason, though, the gate has been added, of course, is ever since the grand realization, which is an excellent thing to have learnt, to be honest, that the AI simply cannot sally out if there is not a gate. Or rather, they can sally out, but they require the gate to sally out effectively. And so a gate has been added. Look at it from above. It looks like handcrafted. Because it is. So the gate is required for the AI to be able to sally out properly in any of these kinds of cities. So gates are sort of periodically and methodically being added throughout the roster of custom settlements that we have in Divide and Conquer to ensure that they actually work now. So that's the only change to Zag Cala. This is a very minor change, but one that is very welcome indeed. So now if you assault the city and they rise up to fight you, they will actually leave the city to fight you. And also you have to contend with these two little towers, and the AI gets a gate to try and hold you off as well. So those are the changes to Zag Cala, and we thank Hurin for his sacrifice, because, of course, he's now going to die as I move over to the next settlement, because this is going to count as a loss. Welcome to Rivendell, the great elven castle and stronghold, and the last homely house east of the sea. Rivendell has undergone some changes of its own as well. You will note, well, first and chiefly, since we last saw Rivendell, these towers now are towers and will shoot at your enemies. Likewise, there's towers on the walls which will shoot, Oh, actually, I think those ones are only buildings. These ones are towers and will shoot your enemy. So there are 2 towers now either side of the gate, which helps a lot. A lot more buildings have been scattered around the central area of Rivendell. And oh, that is awesome. RK has created this fantastic looking waterfall, which, oh, that's just brilliant, RK. Absolute kudos for that. And I like the whole stable vibe it's got going on. That's really cool. The square is now obviously positioned back here, and the actual house itself is up on the hill behind. And can be mounted and used. You can place your archers up on the hill, give your melee troops down in the square, and fire down on anything as it walks into the heart of the sort of fortressy area that encompasses Rivendell. Do note, these walkways are walkways. I should have played as the defender, really, but it's almost impossible to get the AI to attack you. So you can put archers out on these walkways as well, and they will enter and exit through these towers here near the Malon trees. Oh, they're not Malon trees, but the asset is. Also, a change that's been listed in the... oh, the bridge looks cool now as well. A change, RK has made it so that units now walk considerably faster when they are A, in shallow water, and B, crossing bridges. So units crossing bridges now don't slow down hugely to get across, and particularly in shallow water, which helps a lot. The elves are so confident of their victory here today, and to be honest, they should be, because they outnumber me like 100 to 1. And even when it's the other way round, elves still fancy their victory. But so they're rushing me. But anyway, this are the changes to Rivendell. So it's just been fleshed out in the forecourt area. You can now climb up the hill behind and defend the square with archers from above. And towers have been added to the walls so that it's a little easier to defend at the front as well. Not that the elves need it any easier, but I do like every settlement, if possible, to have towers, because that is the whole... That usually is the key advantage of having a settlement as the defense, is that you get the towers to assist you. Obviously, they also have to get through the wall, so it often works as quite a checkpointy style battle. But I think the towers are the key thing that separate field battles from city battles. And so I do like towers where we can get them, so I'm pleased that these have been added. But that is Rivendell then. I'm fairly certain we're coming to sort of the end of Rivendell now. I don't think many more changes are planned, but the new settlement works so much better. The AI handles it better, it's easier to place your troops, it's easier to defend, it is just generally better. And these waterfalls look damned cool as well, don't they, as they drain away into, I'm assuming, is it the Brunnen, that goes right past Rivendell? Or does it even go right past? Yes, it does. I'm sure it's the Brunnen. That runs beyond. But and look at the glory of Rivendell seen from afar, nestled in the very base of the mountains. It just looks wonderful. And now, lastly, then, we shall pass over to Dead Man's Dyke, the great ruined city of Knost Changes. Oh, look, the elves are firing at us. No, elves! No! Faramir will pay for his... he will pay in blood, unfortunately, today. Look at that elf there. Oh, we missed him as he got his arrow off. No! Anyway, sorry. Knost. Let's go to Knost. And finally then, welcome to Dead Man's Dyke, Knost Changes. Knost has undergone a very similar change to that of Zag Cala, in that it now has a gate even when it is ruined. And not only that, but something you might note from all the sides you're currently looking at, is that the holes in all of the walls have been patched up. Now, of course, in real life, you obviously could scramble over that, absolutely no trouble, but the computer will not be able to. So in order to make the AI able to sally out of Knost, the walls have been closed. The gaps in all of the walls have been shut, and a gate has been added at the start. A nice little addition as well is that the general of the rebel garrison at the start of the game is now a barrow wight, which I think is quite cool. But I will go around and show the rest as well. As the sun sets in the far east. Now, does the sun set in the east? No, it rises in the east. Sun sets in the far west. You'll note the gaps again have just been filled with minor rubble. So you cannot get into the city without going through the gate anymore. And the AI is doing its best to lose that advantage by running at us. All the goblins. Oh, look, they've got trolls and everything. Oh, look at the cool ruins there, though. RK did mention that because the settlement, even when ruined, now has to go through a gate, he has made certain sections of the wall unmannable. which is what this effect is for and things like that. So you can't put as many units on the walls, though. So even though you do get the benefit of a gate when you're fighting in Knost as a defender, before it's upgraded, you still can't really utilize the walls very well. And so it's still very similar to the way you would fight before, but now that there just is the advantage of a gate there, and there's some Dunedain encampments nestled in the edges of each of these sort of squares. But anyway, that is it for changes for now. So I would expect the next developer diary, which will be sometime around the start of January, I should have thought, will likely include all of the rundown of the Ered Luin script. And as many of you may have remembered, the Ered Luin script is the last thing we want to get in before version 4 is released. So version 4 closes in upon us as we draw nearer and nearer to 2020. I cannot give you a set date of release, and I cannot even hint at when it will come out because, to be honest, I have literally no idea. Ered Luin is not yet completed. Oh, that looks awesome, doesn't it? It looks like we're following the path of a burning sun or something. Oh, go on, hit a troll. Hit a troll. Yes! Oh, you're big, you're clumsy, and you're deadly, but you are no match for a trebuchet blast to the knees by the looks of it. That troll used to be an adventurer like you, and then I took a giant rock to the knees. Oh, they're killing their own men and moving through. Disappointing. Disappointing. No cohesion. But anyway, we thank Denethor very much for his kind and willing sacrifice here today in ensuring the survival of nothing. He's going to die. But anyway, that concludes this developer diary. So thank you very much for watching, if indeed you have. I do hope you've enjoyed some of the Ardenaeum changes, particularly. And of course, you're looking forward to fighting in some of these now improved settlements that will be able to defend themselves if you attack them. It was always a bit of a pain to know that the AI couldn't actually sally out of a settlement and you have to wait the 9 turns, being attacked every single turn, and realising if you just stand still for 5 minutes and set at the timer to times 6, you'll win. It always felt a bit cheesy, but now, as is you're witnessing firsthand on all of these settlements, the AI is rushing out. Although they didn't in Zag Cala, actually, but they are, of course, here and in Rivendell. So it is very much now a thing. But anyway, as I say, stay tuned for the next developer diary in a sort of a month's time or so, I should hope. And it'll cover Ered Luin and the plan for that. But for now, and until we speak again, Navarneden Peribad Melonin, and farewell.